I think a lot of it has to be understood from an industry standpoint. Obviously, the system in place is that if you are making a movie and you want a lot of funding for it and you project to sell it to a wide audience, having an established star or a number of stars is going to make you money. So then the question would be why white actors have star status already to begin with, and that's a really long history. The Hollywood industry, as we well know, is dominated by white executives and white actors. So the idea is that everyone can identify with whiteness, and having a person of color would disrupt the majority white people in the country for having that point of identification. So the assumption is that white is the norm, but also the thing that unites everyone. And of course, a lot of film theorists have now, and starting in the 60s and 70s, disputed this claim and said that obviously having a white protagonist means that some people, particularly people of color and women of color, won't be able to have that point of identification. So from the industry standpoint, you want to reach the most possible people to see your film, and that just ends up being this vicious cycle.
It's because we have this kind of like this notion of like white as default, and honestly, like it's like culturally, like white people have been like in movies, like they've been like the dominant race in every movie, and now it's kind of just like we just don't see color anymore. We just see them as acting in them.
And this idea of like, you know, white as being all colors but also none at all, and this idea that, you know, because it's unmarked and, you know, you don't say it's like a white actress, or like you don't really have to specify in our society, because especially in Western culture, like it is the majority. And the fact that like, okay, you have to specify like, oh, she's a black actress or she's an Asian actress, or, you know, I think there's just some distinction that is made for different races that isn't made for white people. And it's really strange, this idea of like, you know, whiteness as default, this myth of, okay, well, they can play all colors because they are no colors at the same time, which is really interesting.
Do you remember Avatar? The Last Airbender, not the one that we all actually
not the
like.
blue aliens.
So
okay.
there's that one. I got M. Night Shyamalan got a lot of heat for that, and there was a lot of outrage, and that movie was a terrible flop. But the sort of idea that he thought he could get away with it is sort of indicative of where we are with how we think.
I just wrote an essay on Mad Max and how it's like, you know, it's supposedly like feminist and progressive film, but it's just almost entirely white. There's like 3 POC folks in the entire cast, and like just like looking at the characterization of them, like, well, one of them is killed off, like she's run over by a car, and then the other 2, like one of them is like, her name is literally like Cheeto the Fragile, and like just this depiction of like, you know, these are the only roles for POC folks, especially POC women, and like, you know, the other one is like just like used as like live bait, and like, you know, this idea of like women, but like particularly POC women being like so heavily objectified.
The classic is Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's playing the, I believe, Japanese neighbor. Yeah. And so that's just a completely off-the-wall stereotype of a white actor playing Asian in a really offensive way. But there are a lot of examples that are not as overtly racist, but obviously the casting means that you are taking the opportunity away from a person, for an actor who is actually of that background and that race. And, you know, I don't know how method the actors get, but having a white person playing a role of a person of color, there never is that opportunity to tap into their own experience.
Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, where he played an African American, and Ben Kingsley played Gandhi, I think.
Dream.
For your information, my revenue stream currently generates $2 million a year in charitable contributions for my community.
Nothing.
Despite the best intentions of the best of you, you must, in the nature of things, humiliate us to control us. General Dyer is but an extreme example of the principle. It is time you left.
I have lone wolfed it all the way. That's who I am.
You're cynical, I get it.
I know what you're doing. You're not going to pick my brains. They're unpickable.
You really enjoy telling me what to do, don't you?
Only because you're so good at following orders.
Yeah, don't press your luck. A sentence.
You know, us as like individuals, if we can start treating ourselves and treating the people around us like as equals, and as like, you know, we shouldn't discriminate because of if you're like, I don't know, of generalizations and stuff.
I mean, I guess it's just, if it's something that's based on like societal perspectives, I think it really just requires a lot more education and awareness on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
So projects like this, for example, would be good in this sense, in like, I guess, bringing people's attention to issues like this, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of the fact that the fact that ethnic groups aren't being represented in their own ethnic roles.
All races are interested in making films. Like, you know, it's not just white people who are making films. Like, I think a lot of it begins with getting those minorities behind the camera and in the director's chair, and just starting there, because it so much comes from, you know, at least for me, I feel like a lot of my films come from my own experiences, and I think a lot of people create based on what they know, and, you know, you can't expect, nor would you really want, a white person to represent these experiences of, you know, someone who is a person of color or is a minority in some other way. And
I'm not sure, because in Hollywood, it's kind of like you want to sell and you want to make big bank,
Mm-hmm.
and putting white actors is kind of how you do it. If you see like an Asian person or a person of color and like as the protagonist, it's kind of just statistically proven that it's probably not going to do as well. So maybe we can try and like spread awareness of some sort to like kind of shift social norms to kind of make people see how white isn't actually the default, it's just socially accepted.
You end up working with her and Pop's handling me, best believe they try to make us kill each other.
I got information, and if it gets out, so-called legacy of yours is dead.
You have to learn to make decisions, man.
You want kids?
Part of me is like, yeah, it'd be an amazing experience.
What is this door so excited about? If we get separated, try and join a white family. You will be safe there until I can find you.
I think it impacts us a lot because, I mean, you see it on your way to work, you see it, you know, on billboards and stuff, and even like little things on magazine covers, it really affects the way that even like, especially the young people are developing, and how like even little kids can be affected by what they see and what they hear, and that's how they'll treat other people, that's how they'll treat themselves.
Oh, a lot. I mean, there's always some sort of thought like, oh, it's just on TV, it's not real. But that doesn't necessarily apply to when we see the type of people that represent us on screen. The television and movies always teach us a lot about how we should handle the world, even if it's not conscious.
I think it plays a pretty big role, seeing as that we all spend a lot of time watching stuff on on TV and on theaters and stuff, and I don't know, maybe there's a danger in purely basing your views or basing a majority of your views on what you see on TV. And you know, like a lot of people say like, oh, like the stuff that you're talking about, it happens in the movies, but why did they say that kind of stuff in general? It's because it's exactly that they base their views completely on what's being shown on screen.
It's just really important to, like, you know, as a filmmaker or as a director or whatever kind of creative artist, that just to like take that craft with like so much care and responsibility, and like just going into it with some kind of like critical thinking and analysis of like how your film might be problematic, as opposed to just like coming up with these stories and, you know, like producing them because, I don't know, like you're trying to get laughs or you're like trying to make a blockbuster. And I just think that to be like a filmmaker is inherently comes with this like moral like obligation and responsibility to really like examine our content and the consequences of our content, because yeah, it's so powerful.